Bonjour à tous et
Hello everyone.
dans quel pays
Waste management is a global issue.
Au Pakistan, la
Pakistan's financial capital, Karachi, is literally drowning in waste.
sous les ordures. Deux
Two organisations are trying to tackle this open-air rubbish dump, as we will see with journalist Asad Pabani.
Asad Pabani.
The worst of the environmental issues are often suffered by people that are also living in the worst economic conditions. The calling in the Chinese was kind of like a gimmick, which our governments love to do to show that they are doing something about a problem. But unfortunately, they often resort to gimmicks rather than actually solving the issue, which really, if you get down to it, is pretty simple. It just requires political will, which is that there needs to be designated trash areas in every neighborhood from where trash is regularly collected and taken to either recycling or landfill areas. It's the simple things that aren't really being done. And I'm not sure that delegating it to the Chinese will get it done when the basics haven't been done so far. So even the trash that is actually picked up by the city government is just deposited in a landfill. It isn't processed for recyclables or otherwise. You do have an informal recycling industry, which is quite exploitative, but does function to a certain degree. But even then, a lot of goods that can potentially be recycled are instead being dumped in landfills. So when you talk about organizations like Saaf Suthra Sheher or Trash It, they're essentially bringing in these techniques of composting or recycling, which are quite common in many countries around the world. But they're trying to bring it into Pakistan, where rather than waste pickers recycling through trash to pick out potential recyclable goods, you have people recycling their trash at source and handing it over to these recycling companies. The areas that are worst affected by waste management are the areas we call Kachi Abadis, which perhaps translated to English are slum settlements. Approximately half of the people in Karachi and in the other cities of Pakistan live in slum settlements. And so when it comes to lack of proper disposal or picking up of waste, these are the areas that are affected the most. And even when it comes to improper dumping of waste, it's often these areas or close to these areas where this waste is often dumped. It's not just as simple as that waste is being dumped there. In our landfills, we usually dispose of waste by burning it. Their air quality is affected. Their land quality in terms of just the immediate surroundings of where they live are affected. The water quality that they receive is often infected, and it especially has a big impact in Pakistan and in Karachi. I try and speak to businesses that are involved in this kind of work on the ground, or whether it's business or whether it's a government organization, depending on what kind of issue we're talking about. So I'm trying to speak to those people on the ground. Along with that, I always try and make sure that I speak to some experts in the field. So, for example, when it came to waste management, I made sure to reach out to a couple of urban planners that, quite frankly, have far more experience in this field than I do, or visiting landfill sites and other garbage collection sites so I can get a sense of what's going on. And then I also try and do my own research on the ground myself. The main difficulty I usually face in my stories is getting a proper response from the government. When it comes to negative stories or highlighting their flaws or criticisms, then they're usually quite reluctant to speak to you. And it's very difficult to get any kind of useful information out of them, which is a big problem because in Pakistan, you also don't have a lot of publicly available government information on the internet. So it's not like you can bypass officials and get the information on your own. You should just take basic safety precautions like try and communicate through encrypted methods of communication, like WhatsApp or Signal. Minimize your the digital footprint of your work unless it's absolutely needs to be out there once it's published. Try and have contacts inside the government or outside the government, because having contacts generally helps when it comes to getting stories done in whatever environment you're in.